Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu rasuluh. Amma ba'du fa'auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. ربنا آتنا في الحسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Dear brothers and sisters, the topic that was given to me today is the love of Holy Quran after I accepted Ahmadiyyat. So my presentation is based on everything I've learned from Ahmadiyyat, from the Khulafa, from Promised Messiah, from Holy Prophet ﷺ, in my own words, and some of the presentation that you're hearing elaborates on some of these bullet points. So it was a very wonderful segue from that writings of the Promised Messiah from the previous presentation, that if you understand why Promised Messiah came, one of the reasons was to generate this love for the Holy Quran. And how he generated this love is by explaining what Holy Quran is. And in my humble estimate, this is what I understood from Ahmadiyyat, what Holy Quran is. It's a letter of love and prayers from our beloved Allah, delivered to us by his best friend. How eagerly do we wait to hear from our beloved, either from letter, nowadays from email, or phone calls. So Allah has safeguarded his love and prayers through this holy book to reach him, and he waited until he sent his best friend so that it is well safeguarded and is practiced through his life. Now, for me, when I accepted Ahmadiyyat, before that, of course, I was researching a lot. I was reading the Holy Quran, taking Arabic classes. But what really changed was the whole perspective, the way Holy Quran was presented by the Promised Messiah. For me, it was a paradigm shift. I still remember August 18, 1992, when I accepted Ahmadiyyat. To me, my personal miracle was that day. My greatest gift from Allah that day was that clarity of Holy Quran after I became Ahmadi, to understand the beauty of the Holy Quran. Now we know it's a source of, one of the reasons is it's a greatest proof of the existence of God. We were talking about that big elephant earlier in Dr. Zia Shah's presentation. When you're talking to atheists, about the existence of God, any college campuses are full of those discussions. This big elephant is the Holy Quran. All they have to do to prove there is no existence of God, just by proving the Holy Quran is wrong. And quarter of a billion, quarter of the population of the whole world, 1 billion, 1.6 billion, will be proven wrong. And that's the challenge the Holy Quran provides to the whole of mankind. It's a source of guidance for all our spiritual and worldly needs. The previous presentation was an elaboration of that point. But I just want to add a personal note. I was reading the book of Hazrat Amma Jan's biography recently, and I was surprised to find out whenever she was in distress or sad, she would resort to the Holy Quran, and she would read the Holy Quran. And that reminds me of, that it is a love letter. You resort to your friend, the words of your friend in a time of discomfort. And I found, even in the writings of Khalifatul Masih Sani in Minhajul Talibin, he mentioned that for a couple of days, if he was very busy, not with other work, and did not get a chance to recite the Holy Quran, his heart is going to yearn for recitation of the Holy Quran. Now, this kind of explanation I've never heard from non-Ahmadi Muslims nowadays. The wonderful thing Promised Messiah taught us, even until the last Mujahid, Shah Waliullah Delvi, and who mentioned even the abrogation, there were abrogations of the Holy Quran, and he resolved all the verses. I believe there were 3 or 5 left. Promised Messiah came, and he provided a completely new concept to the Muslims. He said, and revived. Of course, it's not a new from the sense of, from the perspective of the Holy Quran, that Holy Quran is a book that relies on its authenticity on itself, not on anything else. We use that in the argument of Khatam al-Nabiyyin when people say, well, how do you say there will be prophets after after Holy Prophet ﷺ? The Holy Quran says Khatam al-Nabiyyin. Prophet Messiah mentioned, this is what I learned from the Prophet Messiah, that the word Khatam used everywhere in the Holy Quran, never used in that sense, always used in the sense of seal or or the best, as opposed to this last. So Holy Quran is teaching us how to use the word and is truthfulness from his usage from the others. Very unique book from that perspective. Of course, Holy Quran declares it's the lasting commandment because it addresses the human psyche, which is constant. Now, here is another thing that I learned, that, the modern Muslim nowadays sometimes say, Islam needs to be reformed, we have to look at the Holy Quran differently. It's revealed 1,500 years ago and it may not be applicable today. Khalifatul Masih Rabbi, Rahman mentioned very wonderfully that Holy Quran addresses the human psyche. And as a result, this human psyche is constant. We make similar mistakes. So if you address that psyche, that problems remains throughout human history. And if you address that, you solve basically human problems. And if you think of that word, that saying, history repeats itself, because from time to time, if people are not guided by the Holy Quran, they tend to make the same kind of mistakes over and over again. It challenges us and promotes continuous intellectual development. When you take out evolution from anything, and many animals became extinct when you take out evolution from it. So it provides, Holy Quran provides continuous challenge, and repeatedly has mentioned that, look, we are challenging you, come and find perfection in my, Allah is saying, in my creation. In your eyes is going to come back to you tired, you will not find it. And that promotes human progress. And this is something which, of course, generated more love for people specifically who are bent towards science to love the Holy Quran. Now, its preservation is mentioned by Allah Himself, is promised by Allah Himself, and there is a whole science behind it. And many of you have heard this in other presentations about how it's been preserved and how it has been safeguarded. The next point is it's unique as such that it can be replicated by human intelligence, as its composition dictates that it's not a creation of man. If you look at a regular textbook, how it's compiled, you have the table of contents, what's available. Allah doesn't address or think that way. He is giving us a perfect book, and He wants us to find out the topics that are relevant for for that particular, or the organization is divine. So in a way, He wants to relate certain stories, often looks like repetition, but it gives us new insights under the new guidance under that particular subject matter. Now, I just wanted to, elaborate on that one point that I learned from Ahmadiyyat, which is very interesting. In Surah Al-Imran, the two places is mentioned, and it looks like the verse is repeated. One about Yahya alayhi salam and the other one about Isa alayhi salam. The same verse looks like one in passive tense, one is in first person. It says, and peace was on him on the day he was born, regarding Yahya alayhi salam, and the day he died, and there peace be on him on the day he will be raised up again. Now, when you're reading that verse in the context, all of a sudden Allah is talking about, there will be peace on the day he was born, peace on the day he passed away. And why? You ask that question yourself, because there is a divine reason. There's a prophecy in it, because in the future, those two prophets' death will be questioned. Jesus and Yahya alayhi salam is mentioned that, alleged that he was, beheaded. And of course, about Isa alayhi salam, we know what it is. Promised Messiah actually used this verse in one of his writings to mention that he could not be crucified and killed in that circumstances, because the Holy Quran says that when he died, the atmosphere will be at peace. Now, this continues, this insights you learn, and you learn from loving and respecting, and joining this Jamaat. It is the truthfulness of Holy Prophet ﷺ. Holy Quran is the proves that truthfulness of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because his prophecies came true through promised Messiah, and all his khulafa. Now, every Friday, we listen to Huzur's khutbah, and he elaborates one or two verses, and he gives new insights of the verses that we have been reading for a long time. The verse that I've read in the beginning of my presentation was something that elaborated a couple of weeks before. Huzur said that we are praying to Allah that Allah give us the best of this world and the best of the hereafter. But what is the relationship between it? Because there's another verse, Allah says that people who want the good of this life are given the good of this life. But our goodness should be such that links to the goodness of the hereafter. What a wonderful presentation and elaboration on those verses that you read all the time. But this proves that the truthfulness of our khilafat as well. It deals with the subject matter comprehensively and provides solution examples and how to implement them. We talked about peace earlier. Imam Yahya Luqman Sahib mentioned about that. Khalifatul Masih Rabbi talked about it. In Islam, response to contemporary issues, and this elaborates the needs that we have. It explains why Allah created the universe and the object of man's creation of the means of his achievement. And this is essentially elaborated by Promised Messiah in the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. This book itself has been source of guidance for so many of people into Ahmadiyyat and the love for the Holy Quran, because the whole premises of the book was based on the Holy Quran. Now, lastly, I also want to refer to our last concept, which is very dear to me, which also led me to Ahmadiyyat, which is the concept of salvation, was presented by the Holy Quran. It's a beautiful concept. Growing up as a Muslim, some of my friends, even I remember my guidance counselor in school, who helped me so much in my life, were Christians. And I could not, as a Muslim, imagine that person could be sent to hell. Because that's what I was raised to believe, that if you're not a Muslim, you go to hell. So the concept of salvation, is so wonderfully explained in the Holy Quran as presented by Ahmadiyyat, that it is a temporary provisions, is a hospital, and Allah chooses. It's up to Allah. Allah's mercy is over Allah's, sense of, the concept of justice, which, was elaborated by our previous speaker, Kashim Rasi Sahib. So those are the reasons. I mean, it can go on and on. I only had 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to invite people to kind of go back and think through all these topics. And I hope that by the end of this, conference, you will find all these bullet points being addressed by one of the speakers in the future. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.